There are several arguments I've heard. This will be a video that goes with the lessons in logic. Typically, I mean, this is a topic that has to do with logic. This is a topic that has to do with real life. So let me address some questions I've received on the basis of claiming to have truth in any way, shape, or form. This lesson is going to be a little tricky, so we have to listen carefully here. There are certain arguments that are self-destructive in nature. What I mean by that is that when the argument is put forth, it essentially negates the proposition it's trying to make. Let me give an example. I'm going to list a few of these and then I'm going to explain something at the end. This is going to be a very technical lesson, but I'm hoping that you follow through with me. When we say that there is no absolute truth, we run into problems, because if there is no absolute truth, if there is no absolute truth, that means that there is no absolute truth is not absolutely true. And if it's not absolutely true, the proposition there's no absolute truth is therefore false. And therefore, one has said nothing when they make such a claim. I know that this is strange because in most colleges, you might hear things like that. There's no absolute truth, or everything is relative. But the problem is, if everything is relative, then everything is relative and isn't absolute enough to justify why everything is relative is true. And what I'm saying is this. Sometimes I've heard people say things like, I know nothing, I simply do not know anything. I know nothing. And this leads me to the third self-destructive argument. If you know nothing, you wouldn't know that. Because the fact that you know nothing, or that you think you don't know anything, is something already, and that means that you know something. So we can't be in a state of knowing nothing. We always know something. The question is, how valid is the thing that we think we know? So it's not a question of, I know nothing and sitting there. No, it's a question of, what do I now know and why is it valid? Because you will never be at a place where you know nothing. If you knew nothing, you wouldn't know that you know nothing. But because you think you know nothing, it means you know something, which means that you don't know nothing, which means that you have to move on knowing that you know something. And since we all know something, now we have to answer the question, why is the something I know valid? Some of you might say the nothing which you think you know is the thing that you want to stand on, but the problem is that can't be valid, because if you know nothing, then you wouldn't know that you know nothing. That means you always know something. But you need to check the validity of that something. That's the interesting thing about logic. It's like you're stuck in something in this box. It's like, okay, you're trying to not know anything, but you're forced to know something. And I hope that you begin to see that this is a self-destructive argument. But let me touch on one more thing in this video, and we'll stop for now. When we talk about, oh, do you have the truth? Or do you know anything? Well, if someone says that they know something and you tell them, no, that's not true. For example, the Gettier problem, when you're talking about the Gettier problem, it's interesting because the article talks about how someone thinks that he knows something, but he doesn't really know it. And since he doesn't know what he thought he knew, the question is, did he ever know what he thought he knew? Let me give you a quick example of this and I'll close. We can't know nothing. However, if we claim to know something, it means that we need to make sure, if we're really sure that we know it, then we need to make sure that we have every reason or like a strong foundation for why that thing is true. But this is the problem. Since we don't know everything, and we're claiming to say that in order to know anything, we need to know everything, there's a problem. Because the only reason we can know anything is if we know one who knows everything, who gives us the ability to know something, and then we can move on from there. He has told us that we can know something, and that's what we depend on, because he knows everything, and his reasoning is what we base our reasoning off of, and that's God. God knows everything, and since I don't know everything, I trust in him, because he then teaches me what I know, which I can then talk about. So therefore, I know what I know because I'm dependent on one who knows everything, and because he knows everything, he can never be wrong in what he knows, and therefore I'm justified in trusting in him, and I'm justified in saying that I know something, which is that I know one who knows everything, and that's what makes me safe in assuming I know something. But if you choose to reverse and say, no, I don't know anything, that's trouble. And you have to ask yourself, on what basis do you justify not knowing anything? I hope this makes sense. If it doesn't, I'll go more into detail next time. So that's all for today.